Many people find IT frustrating and annoying. But it doesn't have to be that way. With the right IT, set up in the right way, it can operate nice and unobtrusively, sitting in the background, helping your business to become more effective and more efficient. There are so many apps out there, all promising to solve your problems. It's really difficult to know which ones are the good ones and which ones are the bad ones. And all too often, you end up with a bit of a mishmash of apps that don't really work very well together. Over the course of the next few minutes, I'm going to set out for you some key considerations and some key building blocks that will help you make sense of the IT options available to you and give you some pointers and tips of how you can easily get started down this road. The first consideration is to keep your people connected. If you think back to the days where we were all working in offices, most of the conversations revolved around simply getting the job done. People asking each other whether, did the delivery get to Exeter last week, or did Bob finish putting those invoices on, or do you have the folder with the overdue payments information? All of these things used to happen very naturally across the desk or by the coffee machine. And we need now, in this more flexible and remote working environment, to put the tools in place to allow those conversations to still happen. So we're talking about creating video chat capabilities. We're talking about easy messaging between each members of the team. And we're talking about telephony. Let's not forget, back at the beginning of the recent pandemic, many telephones in offices were just ringing unanswered because nobody thought to bring the telephone into this remote working world, as well as all of the emails and the file sharing and the rest of the technology. So keeping your people connected is a really important place to start, because without it, your business is going nowhere. The second consideration in this marvelous world of keeping people connected is that we have to be wary of the obligations we have under GDPR, or the data protection regulations. So at the same time as making all of this information and communication accessible to the people who need it, we really need to make sure that we're protecting it from the people who don't need it or shouldn't have access to it at all. Data protection is a really important principle, and to start thinking about protecting your data means you need to start thinking about where your data is held, what it's used for, and who has access to it. One golden rule is to keep data in as few places as possible. And the third area for us to look at is how can we get all of this technology to actually help us make our organisations more efficient, more effective? How can we automate those tedious tasks that nobody likes to do, freeing up your staff, your team, to do the things that actually generate proper value to your customers and to your business? How often do you enter the same data into various different systems, for example, when you get a new customer? Or how easy is it for you to raise an invoice and for your accounting system and your submissions to HMRC to all tie together without overload of manual labour? So let's move on and look at the three key building blocks that you need to start to put in place to represent probably 80% of the technology needs that your business will have. The first one is a CRM, Customer Relationship Management, or Contact Relationship Management System. These days, they're often used right the way through the supply chain, from managing the funnel at the front end when they're used with marketing tools like MailChimp or MailerLite or any other bulk email platform, and all the way through to invoicing and supplier management, supplier contact and communications. They can be really thin, cheap and efficient, or they can be very complex and therefore a bit more expensive. So that's your CRM. The second thing to look at would be your accounting system. These days, with making tax digital, it just makes no sense whatsoever to do anything other than adopt a cloud-based accounting system. I'm talking about the likes of Xero or QuickBooks or Sage or one of the many systems that are out there designed for freelancers particularly. But whatever you do, make sure that it's approved by the HMRC. In fact, many accountants these days are offering Xero or QuickBooks or one of the other systems as part of their service. And then the third area that we need to look at, the third building block, is a tool that can help you with your business admin, your day-to-day business activity. And we're talking about managing emails, we're talking about calendars, we're talking about file sharing and chat and video conferencing, and all of these tools that allow you to maintain a proper degree of control over all of the communications that are happening and all the information that's being exchanged in and around your business. Under your GDPR obligations, you have to know where your data is kept and that it's being stored appropriately. You have to know who is having access to that information, and you have to know whether that information is somehow lost or stolen and represents then a data breach. That's really difficult to do if you've got information spread far and wide in all sorts of different apps and systems. So this is where the principle of bringing information together and keeping it in as few places as possible really bears fruit. So then when we look at automation, we go back to these building blocks and often look at how information is passed between one and another and see whether there's a way that using technology we can make that happen automatically. If you think of these as your systems and you think of these places as potentially where your team members are perhaps entering the same customer information time and time again, then this is where we can start to look at using tools, applications or APIs that allow us to automate this kind of activity. The capability that these tools have these days is pretty wide and pretty vast. It's just a case of knowing what you want to do and then looking at the best way to accommodate that, ideally within the tool set that you've already chosen. How can you automatically include emails that you've sent backwards and forwards in your customer records in your CRM system? Or how could people easily create an appointment with you by using an online booking tool that allows them to see your availability automatically and schedule a slot in your calendar that's convenient to you, all without you having to have that telephone tag or email tag to try and find a convenient time. Or if you're a business that's still using paper forms, perhaps you could look to turn those forms into an online form. With an online form, the customer enters exactly the same data, but when they click submit, it will populate a spreadsheet or a database of your choosing, and then that information can automatically flow through your other systems, like your accounting system or your invoicing system or your CRM. And all of that can happen without any human interaction other than the customer entering the data. These tools have lots and lots of powerful capability. It's really about understanding what's there, what you need, and how they can help. So there's a little framework that you can use when you're looking at the technology that might be right to help you manage and grow your business going forward. But remember, choosing the right IT isn't easy, and choosing the wrong IT can often end up as an expensive mistake. My guidance would be to get expert help at the beginning when you're looking through your options so that you avoid going down the wrong road in the first place. Use the guiding principle to keep your data in as few places as possible and limit your IT environment to as few systems as possible to give yourself half a chance of managing it going forwards. And if you start with Google or Microsoft, you won't go far wrong. There are other options, things like Zoho for those who are more keen to dabble with the technical apps themselves. But as a starting point for most of us, start with Google or Microsoft for your core business admin. CRMs, there are so many that you really need to map out what you might use it for first to have any chance of making a decision in the right direction. And your accounting systems, as I mentioned before, are often dealt with most easily just by signing up with an accountant who will manage all of that for you. Now it's over to you. Investing in the right technology will help in almost every part of your business as you grow. And I hope you feel a little more confident now about the choices available to you. If you'd still like a little help, we're always here and always very happy to have a chat.